Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching GEEKCASTER, everything sci-fi, fantasy, geek culture, and geek content.
Alrighty, I'm ready.
We already started, lady. You're watching GEEKCASTER. I'm Michael, and today we've got
Dayveonne Bussey.
The real one, Corey Davis.
Your fave, say Leone.
All right, we're going to talk about Lovecraft Country. Man,
Wait.
First of all, Corey, give us a little history on Lovecraft Country, a little backstory on it before the series came out.
So the book was originally written by Matt Ruff, and it's a basic overview of what we see in the show. However, the show and the book are actually they're doing a Walking Dead. It's going to be parallels, but they're going in two different directions. So if you read the book and you're watching the show, you're like, wait a minute, this didn't happen in the book. That's because they're taking the show in a completely different place than they did with the book. So even if you read it, you have no idea what the show is going to do. And if you watch the show, if you read the book, don't be disappointed because they're two different worlds.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, did any of you read the book?
No.
I have the Audible.
So it's really interesting because it takes concepts of racial unrest, your classic mystery, your horror films, and kind of put it all together in a 1955 segregation reality. Kind of like the black man's horror, real life in America. Yes, I said it.
Yeah.
Especially during that time.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's what he intended when he wrote the book. Like, it was very horrific for us to go through that. But what's even more horrific than to add actual monsters and demons to deal with the atrocities of racism. To combine those two, I think was just pure genius.
That
I have
is
a quick
genius.
question. So it's called Lovecraft Country. So they talk about H.P. Lovecraft a lot. Do you know anything about his history? Because I recently have learned, because of watching the show, how racist he was.
Like they said in the poem on episode 1 on the creation of the N-word. Yeah. I am not that familiar. I haven't gone that deep. I have read a couple of poems. But I don't know if I want to look them up now.
Right.
You feel that way?
It's interesting. The soundtrack in episode 1 was very much of the times. Episode 2, they randomly threw a contemporary song and then went back to songs of the time. Episode 3, a lot more contemporary, and episode 4, just contemporary music. That threw me off a little bit, though. Why do you think they made that decision to...
I think, personally, they wanted to tie in the modern with the old. And it's like a subtle hint, like, even though we are doing this as a time period, it's still very much relevant today. So that's why you had, like, different periods. You have periods of the 50s, you have some music from the 70s, you have Rihanna in episode 3. So it's like...
Wait, what?
Yeah, Rihanna, in the beginning of episode 3, as
Who
Chris
was
Evans
she?
driving her car, they were playing Rihanna music, the soundtrack.
Oh, Rihanna. Okay, I thought... Okay, my
Better Have My Money. That was the soundtrack
I
that
thought she was in the show. I was like,
No.
how did I miss
So-
That quick second, nobody noticed her.
Now, to warn anyone watching this, we're just going to talk about it. So, it is a spoiler alert, but only up to episode 4. So, episode 1, 2, 3, and 4.
That's
So
all
we
the
all-
episode's out.
So, we're just talking.
So if you ain't see those episodes, sorry.
Right.
Turn back now.
But it's worth it, because even if we said everything, there's still more to see. And that's one thing I like about this show. There's even stuff that Corey, you said you had to watch like 2-3 times each episode because there were things you didn't see before. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, where do you want me to start?
The beginning, the very, very beginning.
Start from the beginning, bro.
Episode 1, obviously, like Sailor said, it's very H.P. Lovecraft based, right? And in each episode, you can see a book. And I believe that the books are correlating to the episode. So in the first episode, we see, I believe it was The Outsiders and the Others by H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay.
And if you look on the book, it's actually Arkham House, which was the publishing company for H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft also made, in his fictional world, Arkham, which they go to Arkham House. So you have to catch those correlations as well. Another thing that I had to walk around, get comfortable in my mind is when Uncle George talks to Tick, when Tick goes over the letter from his father, and they're talking about Tick's mother. If you look at Uncle George, his reaction
that's Tick
is
right there. Go ahead.
Yes. Tick is short for Atticus, and we shall refer to him in future notes as Tick. When he's talking to his Uncle George about Tick's mother, who we know nothing about, we see Uncle George act very strangely. And we do see pictures in each episode so far of Tick's mother on the walls, in Uncle George's wallet, and Tick's father's wallet, which we have yet to see in episode 1. But I'll get to all those correlating little details that I've also found so far.
Alright, keep going.
Alrighty. There's
I
a
like
close up of the uncle right there.
Played by Courtney B. Vance.
Exactly.
You know, it's interesting. The scene when they were in the diner, I thought that was so
Oh my god.
awesome and scary in itself. Of just imagine being in America at that time where you had to worry about what diner to go to, and
Right.
the Uncle George's job was to create maps to let people know what roads to take. They were travel guides, travel guides for black people in America. This is where you travel to be safe. This is where you travel to go on vacation. This is how to get to your relative's house, to be able to get there safely, because there was a lot of towns you just couldn't go through, and it was at a risk. And if you stopped, maybe you didn't even stop, they stopped you, you just didn't make it home alive. That was deep. That was the biggest monster to me. Yeah.
Green Brook with Mahershala Ali. I like that Uncle George's travel guides are also green, just to show that correlation. Like, Green Book is an actual thing.
Oh. Wow.
Details.
Yeah, there's a lot of details.
These shows coming up now are reminding me is like how we're talking about now, like people are saying defund the police or asking for a police reform. But what's really funny is how we feel like this group that was based on pretty much protecting white people from people like us, and of course killers and rapists, but mostly colored people and POC, how are they supposed to become now a system that protects us? You know, it's kind of like I would feel like reform is needed. So it's a new basis, it's a new construct of what we see the police as, because really it's kind of like hard to get rid of a habit, you know? Like, as much reform as we've done so far, there's still police officers that are getting through training because they're not, trained correctly. They're not having that racial sensitivity training. They're not applying it.
And just to say this, I really understand Tick a lot, because he went to the military to escape his environment, as did I. I still am 18 years, so I understand that correlation between being black and going serving a country that doesn't really serve you in a way. And so they talk about that. They mention that. So I understand that sentiment. When Tick has that moment when he's talking to his uncle about, my dad said, why you going to go out and fight the white man's war? My father said that to me too, being a Haitian man that he is. And I really, really, that scene just resonated with me. So a lot of people have to understand that it's not that we don't understand the atrocities. We feel as though we can do a lot more, and we're meant to be a lot more. So like you said, reform probably can take us to places that we have yet to see.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that point.
So besides the horror of travel and just living, the second major horror were these beasts in the woods that led up to a whole secret society that used us, manipulated us, but did not like us. And it's just amazing how every step there's some sort of monster, there's some sort of thing, but the monster's not the biggest evil. The biggest evil was always racism, no matter which way you turned. And I thought that was brilliant. In fact, here's a close-up of one of the monsters right here. Now, if you saw this would kind of freak you out. There's the one with the multiple eyes.
Yeah, that's the one that they thought that they claimed that was a vampire. That when it bites you, you're changing.
That's actually one of the Lovecraft's creations. Right. And Tick explains that in the woods on the road before we encounter them. And that whole dynamic of being in the cabin with a police officer who has a shotgun at you but still worried about the monsters, he's still pointing at you like you're the bigger threat. So I thought the subtlety of that scene was enormous.
You can't leave because you might run off. Okay.
You'd be like, hold up, first and foremost, would you rather me run off to save your behind, or rather me die with you, or see what happens when they bite?
Well, we know what happened with that scene.
Right. I want to know, Corey, if you could explain this secret society to me and how it may be how it's linked to Tick.
So, that's the part. That's episode 2. There's a lot that I'm still trying to understand, right? So we understand Tick is somehow the great descendant of the great Titus Birthright, right? Birthright, I can never say that name correctly.
Yeah, Birthright.
So, this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to just summarize the whole episode. We all know Uncle George passes in episode 2. Sorry, spoiler.
Spoilers for
sadness, depression.
Right before he dies, he has a conversation with Tick's father, Montrose, right? And we all know that Montrose may not be Tick's father. So, what does that mean? Why is Uncle George so adamant about his lineage? It's not just Tick's mother. I believe that Tick's actual father has something to do with his whole Braithwaite, Epstein correlation. All in the Winthrop House, right? We all know that episode 3, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit, we're going to the Winthrop House, which is what they're trying to find the Ori, right? So all this correlates with his lineage. I'm trying to decipher that too, because in the book it goes completely different than the show, so I'm trying to figure out the show. And I haven't gotten to that point yet. But what we know so far
what is this like, back to episode 2? What is this like, Sons of Adam? Like, what is all that?
That is, I don't want to say a cult, because we talked about the Freemasons, we talked about the Sons of Adam, so if you want to call it a cult, it could be a cult. They started this whole, how do I say?
Bye.
I just had a brain fart. I know what I'm trying to say, but I got stop. So the sons of Adam basically want to be God. Right? They want to have God's power because that's what Adam in the Bible. Adam put everything in its place, just like Samuel said, right? And so they want the power of God, basically.
Yeah.
Adam had this great power, and they want to bring that on earth. That's the whole purpose of their claim,
Okay.
or whatever. And that's what they're trying to find.
But Hick is a descendant of Titus, correct?
Yes.
And he has some type of magic in him, right?
Right.
So they try to use him as a power cell, pretty much. But it overloaded and backfired on them? Is that an easy way to explain what happened?
It's an easy way because not everyone can control what Titus did. Titus is the strongest person. He came up with all these spells. And the only person who could use the spells are direct descendants. And everyone has tried to decipher the code to gain the power of Adam like Titus did. And that's where we're at in the show. And that's what Tick is trying to achieve.
Okay.
And now,
Makes sense?
yeah. I got a question in regards to Christina, the girl that the blonde. No. My question is she a descendant, or she just happens to be somebody that was able to use witchcraft to basically control certain things? What is her story? That's for
They're related. So they're all down the same bloodline, but there's some reason that only the sons get to have the power. And that's what she was talking to Tick about. Why do the sons do this, and you only got this because you just happen to be born in the lineage, and you just happen to be a man. So that's my understanding, that only the men get to have the power. And she is a descendant, but she doesn't have the power because she is a woman.
I don't know, y'all, because what if his mom had the power? And that's why they want him? I don't know, maybe. But, I think that's why she's trying to... I mean, I'm jumping ahead now. But I think she's trying to find a way to get power for herself.
Right, and that's what I think so, too.
It's interesting how you have the elements of, obviously, the African-American experience trying to overcome everything that they're dealing with. And then you have the blondest white woman trying to overcome whatever's going on in her world, in her equal footing within the darkness, right? Because she's a descendant, a female that wants to run the secret society. She's also, she also kind of set everybody up in this kind of coven world. Then you see another conflict between a police officer, a chief, and him kind of trying to set her up, follow her, and she thwarts that. So it's really interesting. As far as the women's right movement, what was going on in 1955? I wonder if there anything they might tap into. Because on the African American side, I don't know if you caught what they said about Martin Luther King.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, "Oh, this guy is running." I think he was engaged to a white woman or running around or dating one.
Yeah.
I heard what she said.
That's the unspoken thing that we don't talk about.
Well, that's interesting because I didn't know his name was Michael King. He changed his name to Martin Luther.
Oh.
Did you notice? There's a scene where they're like, "Oh yeah, this preacher Michael, he's always running around white women, and he's with a white woman, and they're like, "Oh well, they made him marry or made him get with, a black woman."
She was at the party. Yeah, she was like, just because he's with a white, he can't speak up for white people. I guess.
Right.
I know what you're talking about. Right.
So I looked it up, and I was like, I didn't know. So there's a whole history of him changing his name and this and that, and that was something that's just not common knowledge. So these little seeds that they just throw into this script, I think, are amazing, because I never would have known that.
Right.
Just like in episode 1 when they're like, "Why is the White House white?" All the gems that they drop in each episode. You're right. I didn't catch that one. Well, I knew it meant something, but I didn't do research to see what it actually meant.
Yeah, I honestly was just thinking they were referring to the fact that that's a thing in our culture, in the Black community. I really didn't even know that it was referencing Martin Luther King.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was more of a modern reference, too.
So now watch that again. You'll be like, oh. It had me, in fact, I watched that episode maybe like 1 a.m. I was researching Martin Luther King and his father to like 3 a.m. Trying to find all the information I can to back up that one scene. And that was pretty cool. See, to me, that's the joy of making fantasy, because you can actually throw real things in there and that you never would be able to present because it doesn't even make sense to present it, or people might not be interested.
That's definitely not in the book.
Yeah.
Or it could be some type of curveball, like a little Easter egg for everybody. So it's like, okay, but here's another Easter egg for you.
Mm-hmm.
And another.
Now, before we run out of time, what do you think about Tick's dad? Which is Montrose.
Played by Michael K. Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's any indication of how much of a bad person he is for episode 4, I mean, I'm not even calling him Tick's dad at this point. I'm just calling him Montrose. Montrose is not a good person, and what is his hidden agenda, I've yet to figure out. Hopefully this Sunday, episode 5, we get more of an insight.
Well, my question is he really a bad person, or is he just going through a lot of things that can't be explained?
Well, they
until we get deeper into. Sorry.
They do give him layers, saying he was the smaller of the 2 brothers. Between him and George, he got abused a lot. He drinks a lot because of it. He was never around. He's a poor father for Tick, and you can see how he interacts with Tick. And episode 4, he's trying to gain his trust, but he's also trying to hold him back at the same exact time. So why is he doing that? Yet to be seen. I don't think he's a good person for it, though.
And also, another spoiler, we have a siren in the scene where they basically showed in episode 4 when they basically tried to take, I think it was the script from the book or something.
Yeah, so they took the lady who is Arakian. That's the language she was speaking. Her name is Yakima Marakati. She also said a line which is interesting to me. She did say that she is not guilty of her forefathers' sins, which everyone keeps referencing. She said it.
Okay, I thought. Never mind, keep going. I thought she was talking about Tick's people. Never mind.
No, she was talking about her people. So all of it correlates back to Titus for some reason. So that it's very, very weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very, very weird. I know we're trying hard not to say what happened at the end of that. I know.
Yeah, it's like I don't even understand.
But
it's a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. But
how did they get home?
The elevator. So at the end of episode 3, you can see that. All right, so this is back to episode 2. When you see the picture of Titus, right? You also see the name Winthrop, right? Winthrop is the house. The house. Yeah, alright, so episode 2, when William the butler was taking them around through the house and he was showing them Titus, and you could see the name Winthrop and Titus. So they were all in the same cult, right? They all built the sons of Adam. So Winthrop House, which Christina got Letty to buy, had Ori in it, right? Ori is the house was what's the scientist's name? Hiram Epstein. He was the mad scientist who was experimenting on the black people, right? So he was trying to figure out a way to decipher the pages. He had an Ori, which we don't know what's in it, that Hippolyta now has, but there is going to be a deciphering key, I believe, in that Ori. And maybe Hippolyta opens it because she's now on her way back to the original house that collapsed in episode 2. But there's a lot of rivalry in the Sons of Adam that I think is now going on that we're starting to witness.
Okay. So you said inside the Winthrop House, it showed what's his name's name and Titus's name.
Arkham House. When they went to find
Okay, so in the Arkham House, I didn't even see that either.
Yeah. So,
did y'all see that?
That's why I said I had to watch it a couple of times. When you watch it, that's why they keep zooming in and showing you different angles. You're going to see names. And when she's talking about, oh, you affect Hiram, when she was trying to walk into the house, she was talking about Epstein, the scientist. And she's blocking her out. They're using his power to keep her out. She was going to walk into the house and get the Ori, but now she can't. And now that we know that the Ori is now in Hippolyta's possession, that's the whole solar system looking thing that Christina's trying to get.
So my question is, how did they get home from the museum?
So in episode 3, at the end, you can see the elevator going up and down, right? It cut off the white dude's head. It almost took out Letty. But at the end, you go to the bottom, and it took them into a different dimension. You started seeing the signs of the Sons of Adam, and it teleported them to that cave. That's why when the cave started filling up with waters, you saw the same bodies in episode 3.
Yeah, I was like, 3. What do you mean?
So that's how they got that house is a direct connection. So Epstein was trying to find a way into the tunnel, which is what he created to transport from his house to that tunnel to get to the hermaphrodite. Can we call her that? We don't know where she's from, but she was reading. She can decipher notes. So Epstein was trying to use her and break into that vault, which is why we see one of the arms when Tick had to take out in order to put his arm to unlock the vault, basically.
Right.
Why do you think the uncle was so against? Excuse me, not the uncle, the father, Tick's father. Why do you think he's so against him researching? So against them moving forward? What do you think?
I think it's the lineage. I think he knows the lineage. I think, my personal opinion, George and Montrose knew the mother, right? But there's something that they're not discussing with their lineage and how that correlates to Tick's mom and why he has his power and why Christina thinks he's more special than the rest.
Well, let's leave it right there. Give everybody a social media. Leave comments. We will be talking about more episodes of Lovecraft Country.
I can talk about this now.
Because it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, Dayveonne Bussey on Dayveonne Bussey Instagram, Facebook, Shamal Williams Instagram, and Shamal Williams Twitter.
Corey Davis, IamGT3 on Twitter and Instagram.
Sarah Leone, I am Sarah Leone Cosplay on Facebook, on Instagram, and just Sarah Leone on Twitter.
Michael7 Michael on Instagram. Of course, you can check out GEEKCASTER on Instagram. We'll have this episode up on Instagram as well as GEEKCASTER.com. But you could also find our after show, which we're going to be working on right after this one. So please check that out. You're watching GEEKCASTER, and go to GeekCaster.com, won't you? All right. All that good stuff. All that right there, right there, right there.